Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Reinsurance Podcast. I am your co-host, Jerad Lee.
And I'm Ben Rose. Welcome to another special news edition, this time looking back over the month of November.
Which is now we're in the sort of the heat of the industry action. And for those listeners who are sort of prepping up for 1/1s, thank you for spending your very limited free time listening to us talk about the news. So we'll dive in straight into it, though. The industry as a whole seems to be buzzing, right? There seems to be a lot of momentum around growth, sort of market wide, as rates begin to harden.
Yeah, I think we saw a number of positive signs about the reinsurance space in general. Deutsche Bank put out something this month highlighting the war having been won by the reinsurers when it came to share price performance. We've seen great results posted by Munich Re and Swiss Re. We've seen same from Score, in fact, as well, and Swiss Re getting upgraded to positive from stable. All sorts of good news for the reinsurers, perhaps less good for some of the insurers who are struggling a bit more. But in general, a really sort of frothy time as people look to get involved. And Jerad, I'm sure you've also seen on your LinkedIn feeds people celebrating IPOs like Hamilton as well. That's been
Yeah.
quite good to watch.
Yeah. And the success of that is again an indication of the attractiveness that this industry is having to the broader market as rates begin to come back. But it's not just sort of it's growth categorically a rise, but we're also seeing a massive growth sort of ambitions across Asia. This month you had the updates from Lloyd's saying their Asian premiums are going to top 1 billion for the first time in 2023, which is super exciting. At the same time, you're seeing growth ambitions being set by Beasley in the region, looking to grow up to 20% for their Asia portfolio. And Markel as well is looking to grow Asian premiums to 500 million over the next sort of few years by 2028. So not only is it sort of a market-wide trend, but you're seeing sort of sectors of the market that have been growing in emerging markets for a long time beginning to really gain steam. And I think we'll continue to see that trend here over the coming years.
And that's not at all at the expense of traditional markets as well, as many of us would have seen. Lloyd's stamp capacity up to around 53 billion this year, which is pretty huge increase, really. I think to take account of, on one hand, general rate increases, but also increased appetite across the board to grow within the Lloyd's marketplace. So very exciting to see that. We've seen Penn Underwriting open up a new box recently. We've seen discussions about extending the Lloyd's buildings usage long into the future. So in general, people are seeing Lloyd's as a really important place to continue doing business, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I think we're seeing this point where as the market continues to come back and return to profitability, leaning into the sort of its core, leaning into the things that have always made it special, and Lloyd's being a critical part of that, isn't sort of receding into the background as innovation sort of takes over, but rather you're seeing a doubling down of the impact Lloyd's and that sort of that brand has in the market. So I think it's super positive on the whole for how our industry globally will kind of come together. Um, but that's not to say innovation isn't happening, right? There was the news this week that's come out with the investment that Vig Re is putting into making themselves a digitally enabled and digitally native reinsurer, looking at how they deploy, all manner of technology, including AI, to sort of help accelerate their efficiencies and growth. And I think they're amongst many of the big Europeans looking to streamline their use of technology to improve the efficiency in which they write business. So you're sort of seeing those two things coming together, right? The sort of Lloyd's model growing, but at the same time, huge investments in technology and efficiency by some of the biggest reinsurers.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this innovation is becoming important in an environment where, as Gallagher re-highlighted this month, we've broken the threshold of $100 billion dollars of insured claims or insured losses, basically, for the sixth year in a row. So yeah, we're gone are the days of low loss years in which we can make our money. We've got to find ways as a market to continue making money even when we're having a very high loss environment. So innovation will be a big part of that, I am sure. Speaking
Yeah.
of which, we've had some interesting reinsurance type transactions taking place. I know, Jerad.
We have, yeah. So you saw the news that Axis just closed the market's first 144A cyber cat bond. That was sort of in partnership with Aon Securities and CyberCube and Sidley Austin. So super exciting that that's in the market now. I think there's a few more of these cat bonds coming out. I know we have some cyber guests coming onto our show over the next few weeks, so stay tuned for that. But it's a big exciting thing to see these cat bonds coming into the space.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen some early movement from a few other players as well. But it does feel like it's becoming a bit of a norm as that category looks for a bit more capacity and support in general.
But
But
going back to the trend of the market being attractive, this class of ILS investors coming into not only the traditional market and then backing the reinsurers in the public markets through IPOs, but also backing these sort of asset classes in cat bonds is again the sign that as an investment class, reinsurance is back in many ways, which is again really, really exciting as a theme.
yeah, 1 year in, still much to prove, but certainly getting
Indeed.
in the right direction.
Yeah, it seems trending in the right direction. It's also good to see the news that came out. AM Best came out saying it's a bit too early to claim that AI is taking our jobs. So as we sort of move towards being innovative, let's not be afraid of things. It's not the AI that's taking the jobs away. This is kind of a funny article that had some interesting parts to it.
Yeah, I did also see some of the question wording that had been presented looked quite funny there. So I think according to FinTech OS or whoever ran the
Yeah,
survey, 73% of people thought that eventually AI would take their jobs. I think that's not especially time bound. Eventually,
yeah,
in our lifetimes or next by
yeah,
next week, it
yeah,
is. So I'd love to see that survey done again with a more fixed time
yeah.
if you get a second chance to run it maybe next year.
Yeah, we are scolding you, FinTech OS, on your on your survey questioning.
Oh, no, I'm sure it was deliberate. Uh, there's
They're
no
looking,
news like 73% of people thinking AI are gonna take their jobs
yeah, yeah,
in an
exactly.
unspecified timeline. Yeah.
Clickbaity for sure. Um, but speaking of other sort of broader innovation efforts, the one that's come out in the US just this week was this InsurTech coalition, which is a collection of many of the biggest InsurTech brands, full stack carriers, mostly Lemonade and Root, Boost, ClearCover Branch, amongst others, all sort of coming together to form this coalition to help shape innovation in the industry. Um, you had Mark Gagin make a comment about this is now, they're maybe now a thing because they have their own coalition. I don't know. I got a kind of a weird vibe from this. I think in many ways, true acceptance for these brands would be being brought into the same conversation around how to move the industry forward alongside the incumbents. Them kind of creating their own group and going out on their own to guide the innovation feels a bit forced. But I see the ambition that they have, right? I think the core objectives they've set are valuable and viable. Um, but it feels a bit contrived to say that they're the ones saying never losing sight of consumer protection as part of their mission statement, which is very much aligned to how the industry's always operated. So we'll see what they try to achieve with this coalition here.
Indeed, and perhaps nothing more than some of the sentiment coming out of the InsurTech Connect conference that happened probably in the last month or so,
Yeah.
which was, I think, in general, a message of InsurTech is still alive and kicking, but ever more refined to those that are actually doing something quite useful for the space. So we
Yeah.
will watch and see with interest where that evolves.
Well, I think if they can use this platform to work with regulators and improve the ability for all carriers to better leverage things like real-time data, et cetera, to improve pricing, et cetera, they have some of the leading sort of positions on that data and that technology. And if they can sort of help get the regulators comfortable with how to build pricing around that so everyone can benefit, that might be a benefit to the market as a whole. So I'm interested to see where it goes. But it's certainly an interesting position there. But so that's the end of the news I think we have for you. But fear not, listeners. Ben is going to be in Bermuda, what, next week, first week of December?
Yeah, but probably a week after this goes live,
Yeah,
I will be in Bermuda for a week in the middle of December.
very
So if you see somebody who looks a lot like me wandering around the streets,
nice.
it probably is actually me.
Yeah. Are you bringing Bermuda shorts?
I am not. I've hired a moped though, which should be fun.
Oh.
Be zooming
Well,
past
yeah.
everybody as a beginner moped user.
Well, the
Right.
timing couldn't be better. It's supposed to be absolutely hideous here in London, so Ben will be enjoying what I'm hoping is at least somewhat better weather down in Bermuda, and hopefully seeing a number of our listeners as well. So looking forward to that.
See you all soon in person or on our next episode.
Thanks,
Thanks
everyone.
for
See you
listening.
next time.